November 11th, 1918. The air in the trenches was thick with mud and the metallic scent of cordite. In the silence, only the sound of a single, lonely boat cycling home. Click-clack. A soldier, somewhere in the endless muck of France, had one more chance. The M1903 Springfield, a beautiful rifle, a precise weapon, but in the chaos of a charge, its strength was its fatal flaw. Every shot fired required a manual cycling of the bolt, a moment of vulnerability, a break in concentration, pull back, push forward, aim, fire. World War I had proved a terrible, crushing truth. Speed kills. Not just the speed of a bullet, but the speed of firepower. The Germans had the machine gun. The Allies had the infantry rifle. The gap between them was measured in corpses. The United States watched, then learned. The war ended, but the lesson, the desperate need for a faster, smarter weapon, remained. The American military wanted to arm every man like a machine gunner. They wanted a rifle that loaded itself, a rifle that was faster than human hands. But the science of the day said it was a pipe dream. The powerful military cartridge, the .30-06, was too strong. Its recoil would shatter any semi-automatic mechanism. Engineers called it the impossible rifle. It was a problem that needed a genius. It found one in the quiet, unassuming depths of the Springfield Armory. The Heemsech, the engineer of the overlooked. His name was John Cantius Garand, born a French-Canadian immigrant, not a West Point graduate, not a celebrated inventor from the private sector. He was a self-taught machinist, a mechanical tinkerer, a man who found beauty in the smooth operation of a factory loom. His early life was a quiet, meticulous education in industry, textile mills, gauge design. He was the kind of man the Army brass usually ignored. But in 1919, his design for a primitive machine gun, a clever, efficient system, caught the eye of the Ordnance Department. They hired him. He was given a desk at the legendary Springfield Armory in Massachusetts. His task? Develop the world's first true semi-automatic infantry rifle. He was surrounded by doubt. The old guard loved the Springfield M1903. It was precise, powerful, and traditional. Garand's goal, a rifle that would use the explosion of the bullet to automatically eject the spent casing and chamber a new one, was seen as a mechanical fantasy. They called his designs a complicated toy. He didn't care. For years, Garand worked in isolation, guided by one principle from his early days: simplicity is the soul of mechanics. The gas trap dilemma. The early years were a relentless cycle of failure and refinement. Garand tried a system that used the primer's rearward movement to unlock the bolt. It failed when the Army changed the primer design. Chaos versus order. The battlefield changed the rulebook. His new direction was gas operation, a simple, genius concept inspired by the steam engines he worked with as a boy. Tap a tiny amount of the explosive gas that fires the bullet and use that gas, like a piston, to cycle the rifle's action. His first working prototype, the T1E1, used what was called a gas trap. It was a clumsy cup at the end of the barrel that caught the muzzle blast. It worked, but it was dirty. It was complex. It was fragile. It would fail under the brutal conditions of the trenches. The Armory officials remained skeptical. They had another option, a smooth, sophisticated rifle from the famous inventor John Pedersen, which used a less powerful .276 caliber bullet. Pedersen's rifle was praised by the committees. It was elegant.
but it had a hidden flaw. It required lubricated ammunition to function, a logistical and maintenance nightmare for an infantryman in a dust-choked jungle or a freezing foxhole. Sophistication versus ruggedness, ridicule versus respect. The Ordnance Board was ready to switch to the smaller, weaker .276 caliber. The powerful .30-06 seemed destined for the dustbin of history. The Garand's rifle, in its most powerful form, was on the brink of being abandoned. The fate of Garand's rifle, and arguably the fate of the American soldier in the coming war, rested on a single powerful voice of stubborn tradition. The biggest turning point of John Garand's career would not come from an engineer's notebook, but from a 4-star general's decree. Part 2. The General's Decree. 1932. The Army Chief of Staff, General Douglas MacArthur, stepped in. The Ordnance Board had recommended the shift to the smaller .276 caliber. MacArthur vetoed it. The ammunition situation will remain unchanged. All future developments will be based on the .30-06. The reason was simple: logistics. The U.S. Army had millions of rounds of .30-06 ammunition stockpiled from the last war. Changing caliber meant scrapping that inventory, a colossal Depression-era expense the country could not bear. It wasn't about the gun, but the bullet. Garand's competition, the elegant Pedersen rifle, was dead. It couldn't handle the sheer power of the .30-06. Only one man was left standing, John Garand. He was forced to adapt his design back to the powerful, rifle-breaking .30-06 round. It was a crippling technical challenge, but now he had the full focus resource of the ornery. Garand didn't just scale up his old design. He found his masterstroke. The masterstroke, simplicity triumphant. The original gas trap mechanism was abandoned. He replaced it with a breathtakingly simple, robust idea, the gas port system. He drilled a small hole, the gas port, directly into the barrel near the muzzle. When the bullet passed this hole, a small amount of high-pressure gas was siphoned directly through a tube to push back the operating rod, cycle the action, and load a fresh cartridge. No complex muzzle cup, no external parts to foul. Just the pure kinetic energy of the explosion harnessed like an engine. It was chaos contained and then put to work. The M1 Garand had been born, a 9.5-pound weapon of steel and walnut. An 8-round capacity loaded via a simple metallic M-block grip. In 1936, the rifle was officially adopted. U.S. rifle, caliber .30, M1. The struggle, however, was far from over. Adoption was one thing, but mass production was another. Springfield Armory had been making custom rifles for decades. Now they were expected to churn out a semi-automatic weapon with dozens of complex, tightly toleranced parts at a rate that had never been conceived. The late 1930s. Europe was boiling, America was scrambling, but the production lines fired. Failure versus triumph. Garand had to design the rifle, but the machines that would build the rifle. His engineering background shone through. He invented new gauges, new broaching tools, and new fixtures, processes that saved millions of man-hours and ensured every part was perfectly interchangeable. But early production models were flawed. Bolts cracked. The gas system froze our rain. Critics within the Army still whispered that the rifle was too complex, too fragile for the average GI. They had a point. In 1939, they were only producing 100 rifles a day. The clock was ticking. The war machine in Germany was already roaring. In December 1941, the Japanese struck Pearl Harbor. The American soldier was about to be thrust into a global firestorm, and he was going to be armed with a weapon that had not yet proven it could survive a heavy rainstorm.
Part 3. The Baptism of Fire. Guadalcanal's Judgment. August 1942. The jungles of Guadalcanal, a humid, pestilential hell. This was the proving ground. The Marines landed with a mix of the old bolt-action Springfields and the new semi-automatic M1 Garand. The Japanese Imperial Army carried the Arisaka, a tough, accurate bolt-action rifle. American Marines were trained to fire 10 to 15 controlled shots per minute. The Japanese soldier, often taught to save ammunition, was deadly but slow. Then the first firefights erupted. American soldiers with the M1 could unleash 40 to 50 shots per minute. No cycling, just 8 rounds. Fire, 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 until the famous metallic ping of the empty clip ejecting. The ping became a legend. To the Americans, it was the sound of a reload, a brief vulnerability. To the Japanese, it became a sound of terror. It meant the American could fire faster, longer, and with better control. The firepower advantage was not linear. It was exponential. One GI with an M1 could effectively lay down the suppressive fire of an entire squad armed with bolt actions. The firepower imbalance broke the Japanese infantry charge. It shattered the enemy's nerve. Patton's praise. Across the globe, in the rolling fields of Europe and the snowy mountains of Italy, another legend was forged. The American entrance into the European theater was spearheaded by men with the Garand. General George S. Patton, Jr., a man who loved speed, aggression, and decisiveness, was the Garand's greatest champion. The general versus the engineer. Patton, bombastic and famous. Garand, quiet and anonymous. Yet they shared a belief in the power of simple, overwhelming force. In my opinion, the M1 rifle is the greatest battle implement ever devised. Patton's assessment was not hyperbole. In 1944, as the Third Army swept across France, the sheer volume of controlled fire from the M1 allowed American units to consistently win close-quarters engagements against Germans armed with the excellent K98K bolt-action rifle. The Germans were highly trained, but they were simply outgunned by every single American infantryman. The Garand rifle didn't just equip the soldier. It fundamentally changed American military doctrine. It trained the GI to be aggressive, to lay down immediate suppressive fire, to always advance. The production miracle. With the crucible of war proving the design, the production difficulties finally yielded to the arsenal of democracy. Springfield Armory, aided by companies like Winchester, International Harvester, and Harrington and Richardson, finally solved the complexities of mass manufacturing Garand's rifle. The rate of production soared from 100 per day in 1939 to over 1,000 per day by 1942. By the end of World War II, over 4 million M1 rifles had been produced. John Garand remained at his post. No bonuses, no fanfare, just the ceaseless methodical work of keeping the production line running and perfecting the design. He was the most important American engineer of the war, yet he lived a modest life utterly dedicated to the mechanical perfection of his creation. The weapon that had been called a toy gun by skeptics was now the unrivaled symbol of American firepower. It was rugged, accurate, and most importantly, dependable. It rarely failed in the cold of the Ardennes or the mud of Italy or the oppressive heat of the Pacific Islands. The war was won not just by tanks and planes, but by the relentless, synchronized ping of millions of M1 clips ejecting from millions of rifles, signaling that another American soldier had just won his personal firefight. The enduring echo. The Korean Winter. The M1 Garand was not done. It became the backbone of the American forces in the Korean War, 1950 to 1953. The bitter cold of the Choson Reservoir presented a new brutal test. In temperatures plunging to minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit, many weapons seized up. But the Garand, due to its simple, robust design and Garand's initial focus on industrial-level engineering, kept firing. The GIs and Marines learned to strip their rifles and replace the Standard Oil with a specialized cold-resistant lubricant. But the core mechanism, the gas port, the heavy bolt, remained utterly reliable. It was a testament to Garand's deep understanding of mechanics, not just ballistics. Chaos versus order. In the chaos of the retreat from Choson, the M1 was the one constant, providing the covering fire that saved thousands of lives. The legacy and the quiet retirement. In 1953, John Garand quietly retired from the Springfield Armory. He received a gold medal for meritorious service, but his ultimate compensation was the pride of knowing his weapon had armed a generation. He spent the rest of his life in Springfield, Massachusetts, a modest, humble man who occasionally walked the grounds of the armory. He never accepted royalties for his design, a gesture of patriotism that today seems almost unimaginable. The M1 Garand was eventually superseded by the selective fire M114 rifle in 1957, a rifle Garand himself helped to develop. But its influence was permanent. Every semi-automatic and automatic rifle that followed, the M114, the M116, and beyond, was an iteration of the firepower revolution started by Garand's simple, gas-operated mechanism. The M1 Garand ensured that the American infantryman was never again outgunned by his counterpart. It cemented the doctrine of high-volume suppressive fire that defines modern Western infantry tactics to this day. The echo of the ping. John Garand, the unassuming immigrant engineer, died in 1974. His story is a powerful reminder that the greatest acts of heroism often come not from the battlefield, but from the quiet discipline of the workshop. His weapon was not elegant. It was heavy. It was complex to manufacture. It was relentlessly doubted. But in the ultimate test, the crucible of a world war, it proved to be the perfect weapon for the American soldier. Reliable, powerful, and fast. Decades later, the M1 Garand stands as more than just a piece of history. It is a symbol of American ingenuity, the triumph of simplicity over complexity, persistence over ridicule, and order forged from chaos. It is the greatest battle implement ever devised. And for millions of men who survived the fire, its most enduring memory is not the deafening blast of its firing, but the sharp, metallic sound of the empty clip hitting the ground.